I'm 52 years old, and for most of my life, Eve, been the kind of woman who played by the rules, married young, raised two daughters, stayed loyal to my husband. There, every up and down, I believed in routines, in decency, in quietly loving life I built. Even when it got smaller and less romantic with Time Lovetto, me was steady, not thrilling, not new, just familiar bait. Something happened not too long. I got something. I still can't fully explain. It wasn't planned. It wasn't supposed to mean anything, and yet it left me questioning everything I thought I knew about who I am and who I thought I'd always be. I never thought something like a thing could happen to me. Please don't make the same mistake I did. Was of Tuesday afternoon, the kind half-gray forgettable day where time moves a little slower. My car had broken down again, third time this month, and Tom Mia's band was stuck in meetings. All afternoon, when his colleague Ethan offered to give me a ride home from the grocery store, I accepted without thinking. Twice I knew Ethan from the few company functions I'd attended over the years. Hugh was younger than Tom, maybe late 30s, with a calm, assured way of speaking. He always seemed polite, respectful, the kind of man who held the door open and looked you inth eye when he asked how you were, and while I never gigged at much thought before, always noticed how his attention lingered, not inappropriately, just longer-thon. Most we made small talk in the parking lot. He offered to load my bag into the trunk of his silver sedan, which was cleaner than I expected for a bachelor. Are you sure this isn't out of your way? I asked, settling into the passenger seat. Not at all. He smiled. I live just 10 minutes past your place. Gives me a good excuse to get out of the office early. His voice had a certain softness to it. Warm, unhurried, it made me feel oddly safe, which was not something I often felt in the presence of other men with. Tom, everything had become a transactional grocery lists. Bills picking up the dry cleaning. I did resent him for it. That's just what marriage becomes after 30 years. Doesn't Tate, as we pulled out of the lot, the sun broke through the clouds for a brief mint. It lit up the dashboard in a warm hue, and I saw Ethan glance sideways at me. His hand relaxed on the wheel. You seem quiet, he said. He shrugged. It's just been one of those days. You know how it is. He didn't press, just nodded, eyes back on the road, but something about his presence fled the car in a way that was hard to ignore, note romantic. Just present listening, we talked about the usual things, traffic, whether a new bakery that had opened Odone. Found myself laughing more than I expected, especially when he told me Astri about Tom trying to fix the office coffee machine and flooding the break room. He didn't mention that part. I said, wiping tears of laughter from the corner off my eye. Probably left out the part where I had blamed it on the intern. Ethan Edegreningi laughed again, then let the momenquia down the city. Buzz faded as Wed drove into the slower suburban stretch off Maple Lane. The houses looked washed in golden afternoon light. Familiar, safe within. We came to a stoplight, idled in silence for a few moments. A mething about that stillness felt different, like the moment had taken a breath of its own. Ethan turned to me. Not dramatically, not like in a movie, but just enough to meet. My ice may, I ask you something, Sarah? I nodded, unsure why my pulse suddenly felt louder, though. You ever wonder if you're still seen? Question hit me in a place I hadn't visited in a long time. Seen? I repeated, softly, nodded again. I mean, as more than Samian's wife, someone's mother. Just you. He'd looked away, toward the window, towards houses rolling by, trying to keep my voice steady all the time. I said. The light turned green, but we didn't move right away. He waited a beat, as if giving my space to say more. I didn't. I couldn't. And then, gently, he pressed his foot tough gas, and the car rolled forward. We didn't speak for a few minutes. The air had changed, thicker, quieter, but my thoughts were racing. I'd continued in silence for a while, but it wasn't the kind of silency that begged to be filled. It felt more like something was unfolding between us, slowly, cautiously. Sat with my hands folded over my purse, staring out the window, pretending to admire the neat rows of houses and blooming lilacs and front yards. Butte side. I was somewhere else entirely. What Ethan had asked me at the stoplight linged in my mind. Like a dropped stone still rippling across the surface. Do you ever wonder if you're still seen? He hadn't meant it. Flirtatious leer. Maybe he had, I wasn't even sure anymore. But either way, it was the first time in years that someone looked at me and didn't just see. Tom's wife, or the woman who always brings potato salad tuth kukutu, turned onto my street and I glanced over at Effin. His profile was confusadere, was no smirk, no knowing look. Hewan trying to push me anywhere. He had simply noticed me. Thanks for the ride, I said softly as he pulled into my driveway. He didn't put the car in park, just idled there. Sarah, he said, his voice quiet but certain, I didn't mean to make you uncomfortably hope. I didn't, you didn't, I replied quickly. It's just no one's asked me thing like that in a long time. He looked over at me, then really looked Andy. Felt like I had to do something with my eyes, anything to anchor myself. I've seen the way you carry yourself, has said there's something in you that's still very alive, but I get the sense you've been told to keep it tucked away. I felt heat rise tummy. Cheeks, not embarrassment exactly, Buta. Flush of awareness of being spoken Toina language. I hadn't heard in years. I didn't know what to say to that. So he just reached for the door handle, but before I could open it, he said, if it's okay, could I walk? You too, Thepperch. I hesitated, the rational part, AFM. The one that managed Bill's baked birthday cakes and reminded Tom to Takahi's blood pressure pills, screamed no. But another part of me, quieter, but Marinsa said yes. I nodded, sure. We walked up the short path to the front door. My porch light was flickering, and I made a mental note to have Tom fix it, knowing full well I'd probably just doit myselfy. Fished in my bag for the keys, the tension stretching like fabric between us. Not tight, not uncomfortablest. Fragileem, sorry if I crossed a line back there, said, standing a step behind me. Udident, said again, turning to face him. It's just hard to know what to do with Amamin like that. He nodded, hands in his pockets. I think sometimes moments happen just to remind us we're still human, still capable of feeling things there. It was again that calm honesty thickened that didn't demand a response. But maid, you want to give one anyway? Thank you, I said, my voice catching a little. He looked at me a moment longer. Thon smiled gently. Have a good evening, Sarah. You too. Ethany turned and walked back to his car. Andy stood there for a moment with the key in my hand, the front door still locked. Behind me, my world quietly shifted. When I stepped inside, the house was dimmed. Scent of lemon cleaner still hung in the air from the afternoon wipe. Down isn't my purse on the counter and just stood in the kitchen, listening to the stillness. It wasn't a dramatic moment. Nothing had happened in the traditional sense. No lines crossed, no kisses stolen, and yet something had happened. Something I felt in the tightness of my chest and the ache in my hands. Ethan had seen me, and now I couldn't unsee myself. The days that followed felt strange, not in any obvious way, but in the quiet corners of me rootin' when I folded laundry, when I walked past mirror, when I poured my morning coffee. I kept hearing his question echoing my mind. Do you ever wonder if your restful seen it? Haunted me in the gentlest way. Tom didn't notice anything different. Her rarely did. Any Maru had drifted into that stage off marriage where silence wasn't awkward. It was just how we communicated. Ask if I'd paid the utility. Billy'd ask if he remembered to take that trash out. We slept side by side, back to back. Our conversations mostly about Cheggles, not feelingsy. Didn't resent him, I honestly did, but there was a growing sense inside Method I had started disappearing. First slowly, then all at once. I found 2 days later, Ethan texted Ethan. I hope this isn't crossing any lines, but I'm headed out for coffee in a bit. If you'd like to join, no pressure. I stared at the message for a long time. I could have ignored it, should have maybe, but I didn't mean we met at a small place on the corner of 5th and Lawson. It wasn't fancy, just a cozy coffee shop with ivy crawling upside and windows that always fogged in the morning. I got there early and chose a booth near the back, partly to feel safe, partly to stay unseen. When he arrived, he looked surprised to see me already there, but then again, I was surprised at myself too. He slid into the seat across From beyond gave a quiet smile. Thank you for coming. I almost didn't, I said, truthfully stirring my cafito. I hadn't added anything to it. No. There was a silence, but again, no tongue comfortablest. Thoughtful, I've been thinking about what you said. I'd finally admit about being seen. He leaned forward slightly, listening. I guess I didn't realize how much. I missed it, no attention, but just someone noticing Simeon seeing past the surface. Henna did spend so much time taking care of others that we forget to check in with ourselves. It's easy to get losty. Think I got lost a while ago. I said quite linther. Fuss said anything for a moment on without changing his tone. Orpester effin said, I don't want to complicate your life. Skara, that's not we. I reached out, I enjoy talking to you, that's all. And it was this sincerity in his voice that undid me, not flirtation, not suggestion, just human kindness. It felt rare, sacred almost. Talked for nearly an hour about nothing important, and yet everything our childhoods, our favorite meals, the music. We listened to when we couldn't sleep. I told him I used to dance alone in the kitchen when the kids were little just to feel. Olivia smiled like that was the most beautiful thing he'd heard all week. When we finally stood to leave, we hesitated them that. Now familiar pause that settled between us, like a soft veil he upon the door for me, and as I stepped out into the light, he said, Sarah, if you ever need to talk or just breath it differently for a while, I'm here. I nodded, holding his gaze for a heartbeat longer than I should have. Thank you. We went our separate ways on that sidewalk. No touches, no promises, just an understanding. That night, as I lay in bed next to Tom, Spack turned to me, breathing slowed. Even I felt something stir inside Manat. Guilt, not regret, just awareness. Something had changed, and for the first time in years. I wasn't sure what came next. A week passed. I didn't see a fan, didn't hear from him, and I didn't reach out either, because I didn't want to, but because I needed space to understand what was happening inside me. I walked through my days like a woman carrying an invisibly question in her pocket. It wasn't about Tethan. Not really. It was about Muhohad. I become who was I still. Alouetto B one evening after Tom had gone upstairs to watch the news. I stayed back in the kitchen, wiping the same clean counter over and over. My reflection in the window stared back at me, older, softer, but still here. Still somewhat thought of thee. Version of me from years ago, before the marriage settled into habit. Before the girls left for Collegabor, the quiet became so loud. That woman danced barefoot on tile floors, made messes in the kitchen, read poetry late at night. That woman hadn't vanished. Was just waiting, and somehow a single question from Amani barely knew had cracked the shell I built around her that night. I told Tom and needed to talk. We sat at the dining room table just like we had when we were young, and broke and dreaming I looked. Atham really looked the man I built a life with, the father of my children. My partner even now have been feeling invisible. I said, Heblinked, surprise wet? Do you mean I mean? I don't think you'll really see me anymore. I don't think you'll let you. He sat back, folding his arms. Where is this coming from? I hesitated, choosing my words carefully from a place inside me that's been quiet for too long. I didn't tell him about Fen, not because I was hiding something, but because this wasn't about Anather Manthis was. About the woman I'd stopped buying, the woman. I wanted to remember. Tim looked down, rubbed his jaw the way he always did when he didn't know what to say. I guess I just thought we weren't comfortable, I said. But I want more than comfortable. I want to feel alive again. For a long time, neither of us said anything, but for the first time in years, we were truly there together in a moment. That wasn't about chores or schedules or bills eventually. He said, what do you need from me? I don't know yet, he whispered, but I need to start finding out. The next morning, I went for a walk, no makeup, no destination, just air and sunlight, and time and halfway through my route. I passed by the little coffee shop on 5th and Lawson. Feet stopped on their own. I stood there for a moment, watching people come and go. Then I walked inside. Ethan wasn't there, and strangely, I was sucked with that. I ordered my coffee and took a seat by the window. I pulled out Anna book. I hadn't used in years. The pages were blank, but it felt like a beginning, not of something reckless or forbidden, but something necessary. Didn't need saving. I didn't need Raymond's or rescue. I just needed to remember that I was still here, that I was still worth seeing, and as I sipped me coffee and put pen to paper, I realized something else. Too, I had already started seeing myself again, and that was